the data. Okay, for quantitative research, it's more on the statistical method. So when you do statistical analysis, of course, you can generalize. Let's say you have a sample. When you study, let's say you take a sample of 30. Okay, and your target population is actually, let's say adults. Okay, adults in Selangor who are. So when you want to study, you cannot, because of the limited sources, cost, limited time. So you cannot have everybody as in your study. Okay, so what you need to do, you just take a sample. Okay, let's say you interview or you survey 300 people. So when you survey people, okay, when you do a survey based on the sample, okay, this sample you can generalize to your population. So with the conditions that your sample must be representative of your population lah, kan? Kalau tak, if not, then you cannot generalize, because your sample, okay, like it's just like you are baking a cake, kan? Let's say you want to make a cake, so usually you make you let's say you know that it's a 1 kilogram cake, okay, 1 kilogram. So let's say you want to make a 500 gram cake. It's just half of your 1 kilogram cake, right? The ingredients, okay, should be exactly the same as 1 kilogram. It's just proportionate lah. Kan, let's say you are using 1 kilogram of flour. So when you want to bake a 500 gram, it's half. Kan? But the ingredients should be the same. If you put chocolate in 1 kilogram cake, you must have chocolate also in your 500 gram of cakes. So it should be representative of your population, so that when you are baking kilo cake or 500 gram cake, it will taste the same. So that is called by generalization lah. So if you're doing qualitative, that is the limitation. You cannot generalize because it's very subjective. Okay, next. Okay, this is more on qualitative and qualitative. Okay, so I'll talk to you about inductive just now. Okay, it's exploratory. If you want to explore, then you go for qualitative. Okay, it has a proposition. So I think you have heard about hypothesis, right? Hypothesis. It's involves some statistical analysis. So in qualitative, you don't have hypothesis. Okay, you have the research question, but you don't have the hypothesis, because hypothesis actually is the statistical conjecture. So if you don't do statistical analysis, you don't have the hypothesis lah. Okay, you need a hypothesis. You need to conduct a statistical analysis to to uh, like to prove your hypothesis. Okay, so in qualitative there is no hypothesis. Okay, it's just a proposition. Okay, and it's very flexible in terms of methodology, because it's not based on theory. Okay, because qualitative, usually you start from from small idea, and then you get into bigger ideas, so generalized. So it can be a theory building. Okay, that's me. In quantitative, you have the hypothesis, you already have the direction. Okay, you know already what is the expected outcome of your research. Okay, for example, uh, I give you a simple example. Let's say you say that if you study more, okay, you will get higher marks for your exam. Okay, so that is a hypothesis. Hypothesis. So you know already. So now you want to prove that your hypothesis is true. Okay, so you take the sample. Okay, you ask them. Okay, how long you study for the exam? Okay, this student say 3 hours only. This student say I study from last week. So you can see that you can deduce that the student that who has studied from last week will score more, kan? Of course, that is not the only factors that will contribute, right? Okay, because this is different. I think my slide. Do you have the qualitative before that? Okay. So I'm still here. All right. Okay. Right. Okay. So if you have a quantitative, okay, you can deduce. Okay, it's deductive. So I will explain later what is the difference between inductive and also deductive. Like just a simple words or simple sentence that you can see what is the difference between these two. Okay, of course, qualitative, you go for observation, ethnography, photography, okay, case study, and then the analysis also different. And if you go for quantitative, Okay, you can go for survey research, you can go for experimental. Okay, if it involve machine or you can measure using a tools, then it can become a quantitative. Okay, next. Okay, so this is the difference, okay, between approach and from approach, goal setting, sampling until data analysis. Okay, inductive. Okay, can we move to the next slide first? Okay, then you come back here. Next slide. Okay, so this is what it meant by inductive and deductive. So inductive, okay, inductive is when you are conducting a qualitative. Okay, you can see the difference. Okay, when you are using inductive, okay, you use specific example to make a general rule. For example, so last semester my lecturer was awesome. Okay, so this semester, okay, my lecturer is awesome. So these are the two premise that you have. Okay, from your observation. Okay, last semester my lecturer is good. Okay, this semester my lecturer is also good. So your conclusion will be all lecturers are awesome. Okay, so you move from a specific or a little premise and then you make it into general. So this is inductive. So this is what you are going to do in your qualitative research. Okay, and whatever findings, whatever conclusion that you get from here might not be uh, true. Okay, it can be valid, but it might not be true. So you can see the difference. Valid is sometimes it's okay, but sometimes it can be not correct also. Okay, so when you talk about deductive, okay, it takes a general rule and use it to make a more specific conclusion. And usually when you have a deductive, you can have a correct or true answer. Okay, for example, you know already all politicals are liars. The politician got to all politicians are liars. Okay, this is a statement. Okay, and then Ali is a politician. So you make a conclusion, Ali is a liar. So this is a true statement or not? This is true. Can you see the difference? Okay, you have the first example, inductive, and the second example is deductive. Okay, based on the two premise, you come up with a conclusion. So which one is more accurate? If you can answer if you want.
Inductive.
Huh? Inductive is more accurate?
Yes.
Okay, what about others? The conclusion that you make from the deductive reasoning or the conclusion that you make from inductive reasoning is more accurate, is correct. Okay. Okay. So in this case, okay, deductive is correct, is a true because you already have the statement all politicians are liars. Okay, all politicians are liars. Okay, this one is a premise. This one is a statement that you know is true. Okay, and you know that Ali is a politician. So because Ali is a politician, so because you know that all politicians are liars, so Ali is a liar. So this is a correct statement. Okay, so this is a correct statement. But for the other example for inductive, okay, last semester my lecturer was awesome. This semester my lecturer is awesome. So all lecturers are awesome. So this is valid, but it might not be true. Okay, because you are making a judgment based on two observation that you make. Probably the lecturer that teach you, okay, probably last semester only three lecturers are teaching you, and then this semester probably another three lecturers teaching you, and you are making a assumption for all the lecturers. Okay, so it might not be true, but it's valid because from your experience, okay, you know that last semester your lecture is very awesome, and then this semester also very awesome. So you assume that all the lecturers are awesome, but it's valid, but it's not true. But you can compare to the deductive. Okay, deductive, you have two statement, and when you come up with a conclusion, your conclusion is true. Okay, ataupun katalah let's say I make another statement. Okay, Ahmad is not a politician, so Ahmad is not a liar. Okay, but that one can become valid but not correct because you don't have that specific argument for not non-politicians, kan? So
Mhm.
this is okay. So
I
this is yeah.
apa tu kacau sikit. So
Uh,
maksudnya in summary, the more correct one, the one that have put apa results dia with specific conclusion, more specific lah.
yeah, more specific
More
conclusion.
specific.
Uh,
That one is more correct lah. Because
yeah.
the inductive is the general one.
Yes. Mm.
Alright.
So this is like the difference between qualitative and also quantitative. So if you conduct a qualitative, because this one is based on your observation, okay, based on a few. Because we talk about inductive, usually you have a few statement, okay. Qualitative, kalau if you conducting a qualitative study, okay, usually your sample is very small. Okay, your sample is very small, and then you are trying to make a general information out of this apa small small conclusion kan, so it cannot get a very apa, you can get a general idea only, but it can or cannot be correct. But if you conduct a quantitative, because it's empirical, you have the numbers, okay, you have the numbers, so when you have the numbers, nobody can argue with your numbers, okay. But okay, I'm not saying that all quantitative research must be correct, because usually when you conduct quantitative research, you involve a sample. So now depends on your sample. Okay, if your sample is a representative of your population, then the probability that your answer, okay, your finding is correct is higher, because your sample is actually representative. It's actually just a mini of your population, right? But if your sample is not representative of your population, okay, then your answer will not be correct or accurate. Okay, so you have to be careful lah. So but when you talk about quantitative and qualitative, that is the difference. Okay, so you can see
So,
what is
so
the
so maybe in a way here inductive representing the quali and deductive here representing the quanti. So
yes.
meaning inductive versus deductive is
Mm,
quali versus quanti. Okay.
yes. Okay.
Alright.
Okay, you can see that it's a like theory driven. Like usually theory is correct, right? So you have the theory, and then you are trying to prove the theory. So you already know that you are in the right track. So when you get the result something different from the theory, so probably you have wonder lah, why my result is not correct. Kan? So probably you have to look into what are the errors that you made lah during your research process. Okay, so you can look at the goal. Okay, so usually for qualitative, okay, qualitative, but I'm not also saying that qualitative is not good. Okay, so both are research design, so both are good research, but depends that, as I said earlier, depends on your focus. Okay, depends on what is your goal. So if your goal of your research to go into depth, okay, to go into depth, then you go for qualitative, because in qualitative you are trying to dig more. Okay, you want to find, let's say for example, you want to go for interview. Okay, you go for interview, you want to dig more information from the one that you interview, so you can go deep. So if your purpose of your research is to go into deep, you want uh, a deep in a deep insight on your area, so you go for qualitative. But for quantitative, it's breadth. It's not the depth. It's the breadth. So it means that it's wide. Okay, the variation is wide. Okay, and then you test the hypothesis. And then for qualitative, you are going to generate the hypothesis. Okay, and the setting for qualitative, it's more natural. Okay, for example, if you interview people or you go for observation, you are really going into the natural setting. Okay, that's mean you don't make up the setting. But when you go for quantitative, let's say you take the survey, okay, you are creating the environment. Okay, you are creating the environment, so it the setting is also different. Okay, for example, katalah you go for observation. So what observation you have, you go and look, okay, you into the original setting of what you want to research. Okay, but let's say experiment, you go to the lab. Okay, you go to the lab, what you can do, you are creating the environment, so it might not be the same. Okay, and sampling, of course, for qualitative is purposeful, you are looking directly, or you are taking the sample, okay, is purpose. For example, let's say you want the insight from the expert, so you really look for the expert. Okay, so you have a purpose the sampling, but for quantitative you go for random. Okay, you go for random sample because in quantitative it involves some statistical analysis. So in statistical analysis, if your sample is not random, then you might lead to bias. Okay, bias in your sample. So that's why you go for random, but this one is more purposeful. So everything is different lah. The way you conduct your qualitative research and qualitative research and quantitative is different. Okay, and how you collect the data also different. Okay, one lah probably questionnaire. If you're using questionnaire, you can have both. Okay, if you have questionnaire, you can have both qualitative and quantitative. If you go for open ended, then you go for qualitative. If your question is structured, you have all the answers. Okay, then the respondent only tick whatever answer that you have listed in the questionnaire. Then it become a close ended. So it become a quantitative. Okay, so look at data collection. If you go for interview, okay, interview is unless it's a very structured, but very difficult lah to have an interview that very structured. It's become a qualitative. Okay, observation. For example, if you're studying kids, okay, you know that you cannot interview the kids, okay, or you cannot ask the kids to fill in your questionnaire, okay. Definitely you go for observation. So observation uh, is different lah. For your quantitative, okay, from the observation later, then only you do the quantitative, that is different. Okay, so for qualitative, okay, the way you collect the data is also different, and the way you do the data analysis is also different. Okay, for quantitative, you are more on statistical tests, you do descriptive, okay, and you do some hypothesis testing, you do some modeling, that you become quantitative. Okay, but for data analysis quantitative, because your data is in words, okay, in words or sometimes images, sometimes videos, okay, so you have the iterative interpretation. So it depends on the researcher, okay, how are you going to expand, or how you're going to write up about your findings is different. Okay, you move to the next slide, and then okay. Okay, this one is purposive. Okay, research tadi. Okay, exploratory. Yeah. So this one explore lah. So you gain background information. Okay. To clarify, to define terms. This one is exploratory. So that's why it's called exploratory research, also considered as a qualitative research. Okay. And then you clarify problems and hypotheses to establish research priorities. Okay. So usually you go in, you when you go about exploring, okay, there are two types lah. Kalau we look into quantitative, it's possible for you to explore, okay, so meaning that you are not going to do some inference, but you can explore. But when you talk about qualitative research, is more like exploratory, because you let your information that you gain uh, lead to your findings. Okay, it's not like theory driven, like it's more like data driven. Okay, types are case study, focus group. This one I will explain later. Okay, example of exploratory: to understand problem faced by users of LRT services based on a discussion session with a small group of frequent users. So you ask opinion. Okay, what's the problem? Okay, there are problem faced by the users, so you want to know what is the problem, so you go for interview. Okay, this one is a explore lah. So you want to explore what is the reason, or what is the you want to understand more on the problem. Okay, next. Okay, descriptive also is a part of qualitative. Okay, you can do data collection through surveys or observation or experiment. You just describe. Okay, when you describe, okay, you can describe, like say for phenomenon. You observe the kids, can you observe the kids, how they play, okay, how they communicate. Okay, then you explain the phenomenon. So you just describe. So example, to measure the level of information literacy among college students. So descriptive can also be quantitative. Okay, but of course descriptive is more to qualitative. But if you're not, you can put your information into numbers, you can also describe numbers. Okay, all right, next. Okay, this one approach lah, how are you going to get the information? Okay, you can go for observation. Observation ni sometimes that things that you cannot measure uh, by like collecting data, or you cannot measure uh, directly. Okay, so for example, you want to see the customer behavior. okay, or you want to see how when people go to the supermarket, okay, what they usually buy. Okay, this one is from observation lah. From observation, then you can see the behavior. Okay, animals habitat. So animal, of course, you cannot do any interview. You cannot ask them to answer question. So of course it become observational, sorry, right one, battery low. Sekejap, okay. Okay, so observational and sample survey. Sample survey, you want to ask for people perception. Okay, it's also in qualitative. Okay, experimental control environment. This one is more quantitative lah. Okay, effect of noise of concentration. So you can get the information. This one is experimental. Experimental is more on quantitative, but you can also make it a qualitative. Let's say you want to observe, but you do the setting. Okay, for example, in the classroom, okay, you want to study on the behavior of the kids, so you set up the environment and then you observe what will happen during that setting. So that is also can become a qualitative research, but you call it experimental lah, but it's not like experiment in the lab. Okay, so next. Okay, so these are example of research objective, okay, that you can measure. So sometimes from the research objective, also you can see whether your research is going to be descriptive or your research going to be, quantitative or qualitative. Okay, usually when you talk about qualitative, you are answering like question how, okay, but for descriptive or quantitative, you can answer what. Okay, that's the quantitative part. Okay, so these are all the research objectives. So you can look into your objective and you start to think lah. You can start to think whether your research is more on quantitative or qualitative. Okay, or both. Okay. So of course, the concept, construct, and operation definition, you must be well versed, okay, in your area. Okay, for example, the concept is you want to look into teaching effectiveness, brand loyalty, satisfaction level. You have to come up with the construct. So construct, probably you come up with the instrument, okay, instrument with a questionnaire, okay, or you want to do some observation. So you have to have the construct is like the tools lah. What tools that you are using? You know already the area, the concept that you want to search, to do the research, and you must have the construct. So the construct can become your tools. Okay, it's the tools that you are using to prove your concept. And of operational definition is what are the, then you go to deep lah, what are the variables that you need to measure. Even observational, qualitative, also you need to have the operational definition. So let's say you observe the kids, okay, so you must know what you are looking, or you want to see how they communicate ke. Okay, so you have to list down. Okay, it's not like just observe and then you must have the guideline also, so that it will come the operational definition, okay, for your research. Okay, and of course survey research is a very popular. Okay, it's very easy to conduct. Okay, can range from short feedback to intensive one-to-one interview. Okay, can use structured instrument, okay, or unstructured if you have open-ended. Variables are more difficult to quantify, for example, opinion, support, motivation, and satisfaction. Okay, but if you have like enough items, let's say you want to study the opinion, or you want to say whether there support whatever let's say there's some campaign. So you want to see whether the people are supporting the campaign or not. So if you have enough question or enough items, okay, to measure the support, then you can measure, but it's very difficult. So it's very some certain things is easy to measure, but certain things are not easy. So probably you can have a lot of question or items, then only you can conclude. Okay, you can measure this. For example, happiness. How you measure happiness? You cannot measure happiness. Just ask them one question. Are you happy? Okay, you cannot just answer that. So there must be a few items that you need to ask. Then you can only conclude. So that's why when it comes to perception, opinion, support, is more difficult to measure, but it can be done lah. Okay, so of course, if you want to study the opinion support, you come up with the instrument or question. You make sure that the instrument is valid and reliable. Okay, so valid and reliable, there are two different things. So reliable is that it's like consistent. Okay, the question is consistent. Okay, for example, if you're talking about health, so you are talking about how they take care of themselves, did they eat vitamin or not, okay, they see the doctor or not. So these are all the all the items that measuring how you take care of your health. So it's consistent. Okay, so that is reliable. Okay, when you talk about valid, so valid is correct. Okay, if they're consistent, they can be reliable but not valid. Okay, because probably the question all ask the wrong question. So they are all consistent, but they are not measuring what you are supposed to measure. Okay, let's say you talk about happiness, all the items, okay, all are measuring something, but it's not really measuring the happiness. Okay, so you can be reliable and it can be valid. So you can have both, or you can something can have valid but not reliable. Okay, uh, so all these things that you have to learn lah. So when you construct a questionnaire or instrument, okay, this is where you have to come out lah. Usually we do this in the pilot study. Okay, so pilot study, if you are using instrument lah, for example, if you are using questionnaire, okay, same like if you are in the lab, kan? If you are in engineering, you are using tools, you are using machine to measure something. The machine needs to be calibrated, kan? Needs to be calibrated so that you know that the machine will give you result that is accurate. It's the same thing like when you are using instrument like questionnaire. So your questionnaire must be calibrate or must be test whether it's reliable or valid. Okay, so it's the same thing. Okay, where if either you are using like measurement tools that is like machine, or you are using measurement tools like instrument, it's the same thing. Okay, sampling is also important issue here. Okay, whether your sample is appropriate or not for your population. Is your sample representative of your population or not? So when you do the pilot, okay, when you come up with the pilot, then you can see whether your instrument is valid or not. Okay. Okay, deals with variety of measurement, single measurement or composite measurement. Okay, composite means that, okay, let's say single means you ask, okay, how old are you? Okay, you get the answer, you get the let's say they say okay 15, then you know already, okay, the age is 15. It's very straightforward. You only need one question to know the age of your respondent. But let's say you want to know whether they understand or not what you are teaching. Okay, okay, so you have like your exam. So based from the exam, there are few questions, get a lot of questions, and then from the question, then we grade your level of understanding, whether your understanding is at A level or at B level or at C level. So, but you cannot ask one question, okay, to measure the level of understanding of what you teach in the class, okay, because it's not enough. Okay, so this is what we call composite measurement lah. Composite measurement is something that you have a lot. Okay, can you move next one lah? Rasanya dah kita dah move to the next slide. Okay, next. Okay, this one. Okay, sorry, I forgot to say next tadi. Okay, so this one is the survey research lah, the one that I talked so long about validity and reliability. But of course, we are looking at the validity and reliability more next week when we are looking at the quantitative. Because when we talk about validity and reliability, you have some measurement to look into, and of course, if your data is not quantity or sometimes like opinion, so you have to make it quantify for you to be able to check for the validity and reliability lah. Okay, this one we'll look into more on next week. But this one you need for your pilot study, especially when you are using instrument like questionnaire. Okay, next. Okay, this one we are going into qualitative research. Okay. Okay, so this is example of a qualitative data analysis. This one, if you type in qualitative research, okay, this one is using NVivo. Okay, if you type in qualitative research, so it will give you all everything that is related to qualitative research. So this is one example of how you visualize your qualitative research when your data are all words. So this one actually, when you look at here, when you type in qualitative research, okay, you can see that, okay, process researchers, these are all the the keyword that you can find. Okay, based on your the keyword here, qualitative research. So you have here PhD. So the bigger the word means it's more related to the uh, keyword that you type in. Okay, so this is an example lah. Okay, next. Okay, qualitative research is actually exploratory. Okay, primarily is exploratory lah. It's very it's very uh, you can have exploratory for quantitative, but if you're talking about qualitative, it is a exploratory research. Okay, usually you use to understand reason, opinion, or motivation, and somewhat, and there are a lot more that you can gain from qualitative research. Okay, you can discover trends. Okay, you can dig deeper into information or problem because you are more focused. Okay, for qualitative research. Okay, based on words and perceptions or feelings. Okay, even if you go for interview, okay, let's say you go for the interview, not only the words that it matters, okay, the emotions of your respondent, okay, the feeling, probably the one that you are interviewing is something like very sensitive or very touching, so you can see the feelings of your respondent. So when you conducting interview, okay, not only the information that you get, okay, there you can also study their emotion, you can also study their feelings, or you can ask question, because you can ask, after you ask one question, okay, then you can ask another question to back up the question that you ask, so you can go deeper when you go for qualitative research. Okay, next. Okay, this is the qualitative research process. Okay, so I show you here. Okay, literature review. Okay, if you still remember, okay, the one that I showed you just now, this research process, okay, usually literature review, you will do it before you do the methodology. Okay, but for qualitative research, okay, you will do the literature review once again after you are doing the data analysis. Okay, so this is where the qualitative research and the way you reporting qualitative research and quantitative research is different. Okay, so literature review in qualitative research, after you get the finding, you have to relate back to the literature. Okay, for example, let's say you know that you need to have a good uh, person to interview. Okay, then you must come up with the apa, literature review, or you have to cite, okay, why is this so. Okay, so in qualitative research process, okay, you have literature review before, you have still have literature review juga, but at the end, okay, at the end of your data analysis, you need the literature review again, okay, to confirm back all your finding, because you are making a general statement based on your small sample, so you have to have a literature review again. So that's why I highlight here. Okay, the literature review part is actually after data analysis again, one more time. Okay, so next. Okay, this is the 5 types of qualitative research. Okay, the normal, actually they said there are also 7 more, but actually the main types of the qualitative research are these 5 lah. Okay, we have ethnography, okay, narrative, okay, phenomenological, grounded theory, and also case study. So these are the 5 basic qualitative research that you see. So if you look at if you find articles, okay, for people that doing qualitative research, you can see that they are doing these 5 types. So next one, next slide. Okay, these are the 5. So ethnography, narrative, phenomenological, and grounded theory, and case study. Okay, next slide. So I explain more about what are these 5. Okay, next. Okay, ethnography. So ethnography is about people. Okay, researcher embedding himself into the daily life and routine. So they become the participant. Okay, just like when you are going for undercover, kan? You are the police officer and you go for undercover. So you join. Okay, let's say you join the gang lah that you want to do research on, or you want to investigate. So the researcher embedding himself into the daily routine. Okay, let's say they want to know about, okay, what is it what is like to be in Africa, for example. So you go there and then you experience it yourself. So this is ethnography. So you, the researcher, is the participant or observer. So in this case, you don't need sample size, correct? You don't need sample size because you are the sample size, because you experience yourself. Okay, so based on your experience, then you come up with your findings. Okay, we have a few research in UITM. Last time we have, I think, we have one lecturer from sports science. Okay, she went to Antarctica and then she wants to study about how being in the cold weather will affect your when you go to sleep, your eating behavior. So what she did is she experienced herself. She stay in Antarctica for a few months, and then she every day she write the diary. Okay, the routine of is every day in the Antarctica. Then that is her research. Okay, so she does not need a sample. Okay, she herself is the sample. So this one is experience firsthand lah. Okay, as well as assessing a dining experience at a restaurant. Very simple example. Okay, you want to know how is it like to be in that. Okay, you know that, oh, okay, that restaurant is very popular, so everybody say is talking about that restaurant, so you want to have the experience. So actually you are conducting, okay, a qualitative research under ethnography. You yourself become the uh, sample. Okay, of course this one, if you ask me how many sample do you need to conduct ethnography research, only one or two lah. If your research involve two people, then you have two, only two number of in your sample you have only two lah, two participant, you and your co-researcher. If you're conducting the research alone, you alone as the uh, participant. So number of sample, one lah kan. Okay, so next. Okay, this is narrative. So narrative is something like you gather the information from the people who experience the thing. So for example, just now you want to know, okay, how is it like to be in Antarctica? So you know that there are five of your friends and you know that five people went to Antarctica. So you cannot go because of the limited, you don't have the cost or you don't have the money to go there, and then you don't have enough day leave to go to Antarctica. So what you do, you go for narrative research. So what you do in narrative research, you interview people. So you interview people and interview on their experience. So this is called a narrative lah. So you gather data or facts from one or two subject through interviews, document. This one, the sample size is also small. Okay, you can have, like, for example, if you want to have the insight, okay, on certain thing, you want to interview the expert. Okay, you want to interview the expert, so you don't need like 100 experts kan. For experts probably you need 5 experts, 10 experts. Then from the expert, from the information from the interview, then you get the insight. So you can derive the answer and conclusion from the findings from the interview. So this is called a narrative. So you just narrate again whatever answer that your respondent tells you. Okay, so example, gathering facts from the expert. So this is part of narrative. So if you are doing this, actually you are doing qualitative part, okay, qualitative research under narrative approach. Okay, next. Next, okay, this one is phenomenology. Okay, phenomenology is you study the event. So you don't have to interview, but you study the item from various angle lah. This one require bigger sample. Okay, bigger sample size. You go for interview. Okay, you watch the video. You go site visit. Okay, this is an experience or perception based on research method lah. So this one is phenomenological, is bigger scope. Okay. Okay. Mm, can you hear something? Okay. Okay, sorry. Okay, so that's why it's phenomenological lah. Okay, so you this one is a bigger scope. So you involve like all sorts of data collection, interview, okay, video. So this one you want to see the students to study the event. So usually in this case, okay, in this case usually you are focusing on one activity or one event only. Okay, for example, let's say there's one event happen. Okay, there's a fire. Okay, so you want to know the apa you want to study, okay, on this what the reason. Also what you do, you interview all the people that is there. Okay, you look at the video. Okay, you look at all the apa new articles from the newspaper. So all this information, and then you are doing a phenomenological study approach. Okay, so university management wants to understand how students make their choice on which course to take. Okay, so first you have the sample, so you have the data, okay, on what are the courses that student take, and you know that okay, if uh, like our UITM, we already have fixed kan for the course for them. But sometimes, for example, track, okay, which track you want to choose, okay, so you want to understand, so you have to look at every angle lah. Okay, so this is where you go for phenomenological approach. Okay, very difficult to say. Okay, next one. This is another type. Okay, another approach for qualitative. This is a grounded theory lah. This one start with a question, collection of data through systematic data collection and related idea, and you get info. This one you need a bigger sample size. Okay, just now phenomenological. Just now we look at different angle, kan? But here we need we can have one. Okay, let's say, but we need to have a lot. Okay, because this one you need to do some data collection, and you need to categorize all the information. Okay, and for example customer behavior, so it's very subjective. Okay, so what you need to do, you have to have a lot of samples. Okay, how you're going to collect it is depends. You can go for observation, but you have a lot. Okay, a lot of the sample size is quite big lah for this, for the grounded theory. Okay, next one. Okay, this one is case study. So this is a normal, sometimes we call this action-based research. Okay, case study is gather in-depth and detailed information about subject entity. So you want to know the experience of apa how katalah disabled people success. Okay, so you take a case study. You take one case study. You interview, but you go into deeper. You go into deep. Okay, this one is a case study. Understanding. Sorry, I accidentally apa didn't uh, apa actually this one more not understanding customer behavior je. So but you go into deep lah. So once you understand the customer behavior, and then you go detail, so you probably you interview one or two customers, then you get apa more insight from that respondent. Okay, so this one is case study. So case study usually you don't need a bigger sample size. Okay, you just need a small sample size, but you have to explore. You have to ask a lot of question. Okay, you have to until you cannot dig anymore. Okay, that is a case study lah. Okay, so these are the common five approach for qualitative. Okay, next. Okay, we go to methods. Now qualitative research method. Next one. Okay, these are the common lah. Observation, I already talked to you about observations. Okay, interview. Okay, focus group. Okay, interview is like one to one. Okay, one to one. Okay, focus group is like you are having a small discussion with a small group. Okay, it's similar to interview, but you conducting it in a bigger scale. Okay, that's mean. But in this case, you if you're conducting focus group, of course you cannot go into personal lah, kan? So usually you have the same question, you go around the table, and then they will give you the answer. So this is the focus group. Okay, usually focus group is very good if let's say you want to develop a questionnaire. Okay, you want to develop a instrument. Okay, so you go for focus group, because in focus group, let's say you take 5 to 10 lah. Usually it cannot be more in focus group. Okay, usually the maximum is 15. Okay, the ideal one will be 5 to 10. Okay, so 5 to 10. So you go for a round table, and then you get information from katalah you gather all the expert. Okay, in one session. Okay, so you get all the insight. Okay, then you can summarize from there. Okay, survey. Okay, survey is one. So when you do a qualitative, of course you have to go for open-ended lah. If you go for close-ended, it's not a qualitative anymore. It's become a quantitative, ataupun it become a very structured questionnaire. Okay, secondary research. This one is from the literature review lah. So you look at the article, okay, based on people's research, okay, based on people's from all the now you have social media, okay. So this one is a secondary research. So you get the information without interviewing. You get the information from whatever source that is available. Okay. Next is the method. Okay, we come to data analysis. So you are going to analyze your qualitative. Okay, so qualitative is very different. Okay, it's difficult to analyze. Okay, because it does not involve. So when you talk about, okay, when you look at the formula, it's a very complicated formula. Okay, you say that, oh, this is very difficult because the formula is very complicated. No, actually, when you have the formula, at least you are guided. Okay, you don't have to worry about anything else. You have the formula, you just follow the formula, you get the answer. But for qualitative, there is no formula. So it's very difficult to analyze because it consists of text and it depends on the researcher. Okay, if you are doing the analysis, you might come up with a different interpretation. If I'm doing the analysis, I might come up with a different interpretation. So it's very difficult to analyze. It's very difficult to say that, oh, this is correct, this is wrong. Okay. So what you need to do is you prepare and organize the data, and then you review and explore again. Okay, and then you develop data into coding. If you can categorize them into teams, then you have when you collect, and then let's say for example you are talking about whether people are satisfied or not with your service. Okay, so you gather all the information. So once you gather all the information, basically you need to read everything. Okay, if you have a quantitative, you don't have to worry about each number, because when you do the when you summarize the data, okay, you already get, okay, the average is what, okay, the median is what, the maximum number is 10, the minimum number is 1, for example. Okay, but when you talk about qualitative, okay, you have to read every answer. Okay, so that's why you have to review and explore data. So it can be done by the machine. Okay, now we have a lot of software that can do that, but still you need to have a human touch, okay, for qualitative research. Okay, and you develop data into coding system. Okay, for example, like easy, for example, let's say you are looking at the satisfaction. So there are people who are satisfied and there are people who are not satisfied. So when you read all this answer, so you have to code them. Okay, this one is satisfied, this one is not satisfied. So you code them and then you assign into a separate team. So probably satisfaction, okay, let's say you ask them about satisfaction and they write about, okay, I'm satisfied on the quality, but I'm not happy with the price. Okay, so you can have these two and then you code, okay, this one is not satisfied uh quality, this one is satisfied uh price. So you can, in the end, you have a lot of categories. Okay, when you put them all together, then you can summarize based on your findings. Okay, okay, next. Okay. So you should be grateful, okay, with all the statistical analysis that is available out there. Okay, if you have the formula, you're doing regression, you have the formula, it's the formula that is complicated, but the analysis is not complicated. It's not as complicated as if you are doing a qualitative research. Okay, so these are the type of analysis that uh, you can consider for qualitative research. First, you have the content analysis. So content analysis is actually to identify and categorize common words, phrase, and ideas, just what I showed you just now. Okay, the content. So you put into under quality. Quality, you put under price. Okay, so these are the content. So you look at the content and then you describe based on the content or the category of the content. Okay, you can have a thematic analysis to identify and interpret patterns and themes. So if you can see the patterns, okay, you can see that the pattern, or from there, or most who are satisfied are female, male. Okay, so you can see the pattern. So these are the thematic analysis. Textual analysis to examine the content, structure, and design of text. Just like I show you just now, when I type qualitative research, they come up with a nice visualization. So this is a textual analysis. Discourse analysis study the communication and language used to achieve the effect. For example, when you have the communication, you see how the kids communicate to each other. They are using language. So when you're talking about discourse analysis, it's more on the language itself lah. Okay, it's involved language. So how they talk. Okay, these are the discourse analysis. Okay. Okay, more advanced qualitative analysis. This one is kalau if you look into machine learning, okay, we have a market basket analysis. This one is for qualitative. Okay, for example, you want to know the pattern when people go to the supermarket, what they want to buy. So that's why we call it market basket analysis. Used to uncover association. It's a descriptive based on observation. It's not numbers, but you still can analyze. Okay, so this one is using machine learning lah. So of course, even though it's using it's numbers, but you still can calculate. You calculate the proportion lah. How many buy milk with butter? How many buy milk but not butter? So from this you calculate the probability, then you come up with a market basket analysis. Of course, this one is more advanced. You can explore if you're doing this. Okay, so you can come up with this one. This one is a market basket analysis. Okay, so from the observation, you know that okay, those who buy fish and fruits and vegetables. Okay, you can see that. Okay, so those who buy, you look at this is the graph. So you can see that confectionery and wine, for example. So those who buy confectionery will usually buy one. So maybe it's good to drink wine and have confectionery like biscuits, cakes, and all. Okay, so when you have fish, you also buy fruit and vegetable. Okay, if you see cans vegetable, beer, and of course this one is data from overseas. So you have here, so beer and frozen meal and canned vegetable. So from the observation that you get, you can come up with a nice graphic, and then this is part of your analysis. Of course, this one is more advanced. So this is under machine learning. Okay, we call it market basket analysis. In this case, you don't have the dependent variable. Okay, you just want to explore the pattern. Okay, this is one of the analysis that you can use. So you can come up with a conclusion. Okay, those who buy fish and fruits and vegetable, so these are the healthy eaters. Those who buy wine and confectionery, there's one group. Okay, so what is this important? So what are the findings that you can get after you get this information? Of course, it will be benefit, but it will benefit the management, kan? So they know that also if you put the fish and vegetable and fruit together, so most likely when they buy fish, they will also buy vegetables. So if you put them separately, okay, probably they cannot see and then don't buy. So you miss of creating more sales in your supermarket. So this is very apa the information is very useful. Okay, it based on qualitative research. Okay. Okay, of course, now we look into the advantages and disadvantages of qualitative research. Okay, next one. Sorry, next. This one the one I so sorry. This is the graphic that I tell you just now. Okay, where you can see the pattern. Okay, based on the observation. Okay, of course, if you try. Okay, this one is one example. So that's why it's called market basket analysis. So it's actually come out from the idea is you are looking into customer basket. Okay, basket. So what they put in the basket. But of course, you can use this in any other area also. Okay, so next. Okay, advantages and disadvantages. Okay, next slide. Okay, these are the advantages and disadvantages. Okay, the advantages of qualitative research is very flexible because you can decide. Okay, there is no it's not very strict. So let's say you become the participant, so you can explore more. Okay, there is no boundary to qualitative research. So flexibility is there, can be adapted as a new idea as pattern emerge. So you find something, then straight away you follow with the flow lah. Kan? Natural setting, data collection occurs in a real world context. Okay. So is that also is the advantage because we are not making up the setting, but we are in the real setting. Okay, meaningful insight because usually you can study very deep from your respondent. Okay, let's say you interview, you can dig deeper from your respondent, so it will give you meaningful insight. Okay, especially when you talk about experience, okay, the expertise. Okay, you have a, it's not like just random sample that you take from anybody, but it's a targeted respondent. Huh? So generation of new ideas. So when you find something, so probably, it's like this. So probably we can explore more. Okay, so this generation of new ideas. So this is the advantage of qualitative. For the disadvantage is unreliable. Okay, because of the uncontrolled factors that affect the data. Okay, for example, if you because quantitative data usually depends hardly on the researcher. Okay, let's say you hire interviewer, so the interviewer must know the knowledge. So they control the setting. So the factor can come from the interviewer. So let's say you hire person to interview your respondent, and your interview is not very friendly. So how you're going to get the insight from the respondent? So there are many factors. So it's unreliable. Okay, it's subjectivity because the way I see it probably different from how uh, you see the same thing. You are seeing the same thing, but my perspective and your perspective is different. So when you interpret, we might have a different interpretation. So it's very subjective. That's the disadvantage. And limited generalizability because we only take a small sample for qualitative. So definitely we cannot generalize. So let's say we interview only 5 people, then we say that is for all, cannot. Okay, it's very limited generalizability and labor intensive. You know that when you want to interview people, you need to hire or you need to pay. Okay, or if you want to involve in that particular scene, okay, you want to become the participant. Okay, you have to invest something. You have to invest your time. Okay, you have to invest some money. So it's very labor intensive. That is the disadvantage of qualitative research. Okay, next. Okay, so when do you want to use? So you already know now. Okay, what is qualitative research and what is the advantage and disadvantages. So now you see, okay, when you want to use this to research. Okay, so we already focus on qualitative. So qualitative research you use when you want to understand something. Okay, the concept, the thoughts, the experience. So this is where you apply qualitative research. The other one is quantitative. Saya tersilap. So it's supposed to be quantitative. The other one quantitative research. Okay. You use quantitative research when you want to confirm or test on something. So you have the theory. So you need to test them. So that is when you do quantitative research. So these are two different things lah. Okay, quantitative and qualitative. So you want to confirm or you want to test something, you do quantitative. If your purpose is to understand something, you go for qualitative research. Okay, so how to choose? Okay, so depends on whether you are taking the inductive or deductive based approach. Okay, you are going from general to specific or you are going to specific to general. Okay, that will decide whether you are using qualitative or quantitative. What is your research question? If you want to the answer of how or why, you have to go for qualitative. Okay, if your research question is what, okay, then it can go for quantitative. So how, you need to go for qualitative. So depends on your research question. Are you doing experimental or correlational or descriptive research? So if you're doing experimental, so probably you can go for quantitative. If you're going for correlational, you can go for quantitative. If you're doing descriptive, you can have both. Okay, so depends on how what type of research that you are doing. Ada banyak kan, there are causal, historical research lah. Historical definitely you cannot go for quantitative because you are based on past experience or past event, so become a qualitative. Okay, so do you have sufficient time, money, availability of data or access to the respondent? If you don't have access to the respondent, then you cannot do qualitative. Let's say you want to interview the expert, but you don't have the connection with the expert, then you cannot do qualitative research. Okay, you want to study those who have been to Antarctica, so but you don't know anybody, so you cannot do qualitative research. So these are the things that you need to consider before you decide whether to go for qualitative or quantitative research. Okay, next. Okay, so these are the question dah. So you answer this question, and then you know already what type research is appropriate for your research lah. Okay, you are inductive or deductive, research question, experimental, the purpose of your research, and then whether you have money or not. Because qualitative research usually you need more money, you need more time. Because interview you cannot interview if you do focus group, okay, but it can have if you are doing interview, so you need more time to interview, and probably one interview will gonna cost you like 2-3 hours. If you hire somebody, you need more money. Okay, do you have access or not? You know the respondent that you want to do, you know that respondent or not. If you cannot have access to the respondent, then you cannot do the interview. So these are the things that you need to consider. Okay, next one. Okay, so these are the example lah. So you can have the same research question, okay, but the way you conduct it is different. Okay, so it's how different generation preference, different generation preference of housing type differs, and different, sorry, how the different generation preference of housing type differs. Okay, so if you go for qualitative research, what you can do is you can conduct an in-depth interview with 15 adults and ask them open-ended questions such as, how do you decide on the type of house to buy? So you ask lah, you ask them question, they will answer, they will give them reason, they will give you why they choose this type of house, why they prefer this. Okay, so you go for qualitative. You can also conduct this one also the same, quantitative ni. This one. I will correct it, and then I will pass back to you uh, the correct slide. Okay, so quantitative research, you conduct a survey on 300 residents at a certain household area and ask them, on a scale from 1 to 5, the size of the house is important factors when choosing to buy allocate the house. So you guide them. Okay, when you go for qualitative research, you just ask question, and then you can go deeper. You can start with a simple question, and then when they answer, then you can ask more. But for quantitative research, you have to be very specific. Okay, so let's say you know that uh, if you want to buy a house, okay, first probably they look at the location. Maybe they look at the size. Maybe they look at the facility that available around that area. So you have to ask. You cannot ask just one question to uh to get the information. Kalau interview, yes, you can. After one question, you can ask another question. You can ask another question. So you can go with the flow. But if you are doing a quantitative research, okay, when you ask them to answer, so you need to have a scale, okay, for them to rate, and also your question must be very specific. Okay, so like this one, you ask them to rate from 1 to 5, okay, about whether the house size is important or not before you buy the house. Okay, so you guided, then you have a quantitative research. Okay, so it's the same question. Okay, you just want to study, okay, how the generation preference differ. So you can have both, but the way you conduct the research is different. Okay, next. Okay, this is mixed method. Okay, let's say the same research question, but you want to conduct a mixed method. So how are you going to do this? Okay, there are actually two types of two. Depends uh how you're going to conduct it. You can do qualitative first, then quantitative, or you can also do quantitative first and then quantitative later. Sorry, quantitative first and then qualitative, or you can do qualitative first and then quantitative. So it can be depends on how deep or how wide is your research. If you're going into deep, of course you go for qualitative last. If you go for broad idea or you're going to get a general idea, then you go for quantitative last. So you can first, what you need to do, let's say you're going for qualitative first, then you conduct quantitative. You conduct interview to find out how people decide on choosing which house to buy to gain a new insight. So you just go interview. So to get the idea, okay, to get the idea what you want to ask other people. Okay, so you just interview like maybe 10 people. Okay, ask them, okay, what are the factors that they need? Because in your, when you're doing quantitative, you need to be very specific. So without the knowledge, you cannot come up with a very structured and objective instrument. Okay, so that's why you conduct the interview first. You conduct the interview, so you can get what are the factors or what are the things that you need to consider when you develop the instrument. Okay, so after you find out, okay, the insight, then you come up with the instrument considering all the information that you gain from the interview, and you conduct the research to get a new insight on the larger scale. So you want to see in a bigger scale. You want to see how the population decide on which house to buy. Okay, so you do the interview first, and then you conduct the survey. So this one is also mixed method. Or you can conduct a survey of 300 residents to find the overall trend. Okay, you conduct the survey first, then only you interview, because in this case you are looking into reasons. You want to understand why. Okay, why is it you choose this house, why is it this factor is important. So if you are going into deep, okay, into deeper insight, so you should go for quantitative first and qualitative next. This one if you are planning to do both lah. So right now, okay, a lot of researchers are doing, especially if you are collecting a primary data. Primary data means you are using instrument or like questionnaire. Okay, secondary data is different, but if you are using a primary data, okay, before you come up with the instrument, you need to have the information. So how do you get this information? Through the qualitative data. So the qualitative data is like you interview people, or if you can get everything from the literature review from other research, then you also conducting a qualitative research. So it can be a mixed method, or if you think that qualitative is enough, okay, do you have enough sources? Okay, do you have enough information to conduct qualitative? Then you can conduct qualitative. But for academic, okay, qualitative research is very difficult because it's not very easy to conduct qualitative research unless if you just want to get the insight. Okay, so like usually we do is we just conduct the interview from the expert for you to get the insight. Expert pun boleh, okay, some of the customer to get the overview, just to get the overview. Okay, and then from there you come up with a quantitative. So for quantitative you must have instrument. Or if you want to study deeper, you want to get the insight, very deep insight on why people choose what type of house to buy. Okay, so you have to conduct the survey first to get the overall trend, to see the pattern. And once you see the pattern, okay, you found the pattern that okay, those who are in if you are older, like 40 and above, they prefer bigger house. Okay, this one is from the survey. Okay, and then if you are young, you like to have a house where there is more facility. There is a swimming pool, okay, and it's not so big, okay, and you have a lot of facility. Okay, you go down, and then you can go to the supermarket. Okay, so you see the pattern from the survey. So now you want to know why. You want to get extra information. So the next step, what you need to do is you go interview. Probably you get one respondent from uh, age 40 and above, because you want to know why their preference is different. And then you also have another respondent, probably young people, okay, because from the survey you know that the difference, the preference is different. So you conduct an interview, okay, based on different pattern that you get from the survey, and then you get deeper insight. Okay, you get more insight of your research, so it will be more meaningful lah. Okay, so depends both. I didn't say that this one is better than this one. It depends on what you want to achieve in your research. So now it's back to your purpose of your research lah, and what is the question or the problem that you want to solve in your research. Then you can decide
Mm-mm.
whether if you are going for qualitative alone, or you are going for quantitative alone, or you are going for mix. If you're going for mix, which one you want to do first? You want to do quali first, then quanti, or you want to do quanti first, then quali. So depends on your research objective and research question. Okay?
Aida,
Yep.
sorry to interrupt.
Mm.
I just can't hold myself of asking this question, although I ask the student to hold themselves. All right,
Okay.
okay. There might be some a question from the students, or normally we get a question from the student. Like you said before, we conduct mixed method because there are different purpose for
Mm.
each method. But then if whether we conduct quali first then quanti, or quanti then followed by quali, I mean the respondents must be from different respondents. For quali, different respondents, and for quanti, different respondents, because the purpose we conduct the mixed method is because quali to get these items, and then followed by quanti because we want to confirm and get this item. So
Mm.
it must be from two different respondents lah, cannot be the same respondents. Like we cannot interview the buyer and then for quanti we survey back the buyer. Is it like that? Or
Yeah, usually because when you conduct the interview, okay, because the interview is involved. If you this one you are talking about, you are starting with interview first, right? So you interview first. So when you conducting the interview, okay, interview usually it involve like 5 to 10 people only. So in order for you to get 300 respondent, uh you can have the same participant, because it depends on, if let's say you are doing interview for the expert, okay, interview if you want to get the insight from the expert, okay, so that one totally different person lah. So expert will do the qualitative, and then the survey is for the consumers, kan. But if you want the insight from the buyer itself, this one is not talking about the expert, I'm talking about the buyer itself. So you can let them become one of your respondent for the quantitative. Okay, for example, okay, let's say when we first come up with the UiTM Happiness Index. So what we do is we conduct a focus group all over region lah. We go for North, South, Sabah, Sarawak, okay, to get the insight from the staff. So what do they think about UiTM as a whole, and what makes them happy, and what makes them not happy working with UiTM. Okay, so when we want to find out what are the important things that we want to highlight in the instrument, we conduct the focus group to the staff, kan? But when we conduct everything, we want to find out now what is the level of happiness for the whole UiTM staff. They will become your respondent back. Okay, because we use them to get the insight only. Okay, but then they can become the respondent because they also want to they also part of the staff, kan. So you want to know, because their opinion in the large scale is also important. Okay, it's different from you want to have the insight, okay, from the expert. Okay, so let's say you are studying on uh, your kids behavior. So probably you interview pediatrician, you interview parents, okay, and then you want to come up with a uh, instrument for the kids. Okay, so when you come up with the instrument for the kids, of course this expert will not be in your quantitative research. Again, so it depends on how you want to get the insight. Okay, if you want to get the insight from the population that you are studying, then of course they can come back as your respondent in your qualitative. But if the purpose of your qualitative just now is to get the broad idea from different angle, okay, not from your population, so they cannot become they cannot become your respondent for your quanti, kan? They are the expert in different area, but the instrument, okay, you do the instrument is for different target population. Is that answering your question, Tafiza?
yes, I think most importantly is to go back to your research objective and research question. Go back
Mm.
to the initial part of the question, whether how, why, or what.
Yes,
Then we
correct.
can go.
Mm.
All right. Okay. Proceed.
Mm.
Proceed. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, because when you talk about research, that's why you have to complete your research question first. Kan? Without the research question, before research question, you come up with a problem statement, kan? So problem statement is the key lah. So what is the problem and what you are trying to solve, and then what are the methods that you are trying to propose to solve the problem. That is your problem statement. So from the problem statement, you come up with the question. So actually this question, if you're able to answer this question, you are going to solve the problem. that you throw in the first part. Okay, so depends on your research question. Then you come up with a method. How you plan to answer this question. So it can be qualitative ke, it can be mixed ke. So when you come to mix, so if your purpose is to get the insight, very deep uh, insight of your matter, then you go for qualitative lah. Maksudnya you need to give for interview. Kan? You know that you don't have the capability of doing a qualitative. Of course, qualitative is very good to go for depth, kan, because you can interview and you can focus more on the interview. But do you have the capability or not? Do you have the expertise for you to conduct the interview or not? So that is very important, because if you want to conduct the qualitative, you have to be the expert in the area first. Okay, if you are the expert, then you conduct a qualitative, you know what to gain from the respondent, then you conduct a qualitative research, is fine. But we are not in that level. Okay, even apa, especially when you are starting with the research, we are not in that level. Are you really expert in that area or not? So if you really the expert, so if you conduct the qualitative, you know already what you want to search, and you know how to interpret what you get, okay, from the interview ke focus group. But if you want the insight, you also don't know, because you are trying to get some information. Okay, so then we go for quantitative method. Then, but before we go for quantitative, we want to know, we ask the right question. So in order for us to know the right question, that's why we conduct the qualitative first. So qualitative depends. So if the insight that you want to get must come from the expert, so you have to interview the expert. So if the insight is actually like opinion, uh, uh, perceive, kan, perception, that must come from the target population. So you cannot ask parents on what they expect, and then you ask children. So it's different. So again, it's very subjective. Okay, it depends on what you want to achieve lah for your research. Okay, if you throw me uh, the case, then probably we can look into it. If you just ask, okay, whether this one is correct or this one is correct, then there's no definite answer. You have to look into properly look into the research problem itself. Okay.
Another then
Yeah.
we need series 3 of the webinar.
Yes. Seriously.
All right,
That
okay.
one.
Okay, okay. Okay, Aida can proceed. Proceed.
Okay, okay. Right. So this is an example lah. So this is an example of how when people conduct qualitative first, then they conduct the quantitative. So this is what usually happen lah. Let's say you want to survey perception, kan? You go for qualitative. This one focus group. Okay, you get the interview. Okay, and then you get the teams. Okay, how people come up with the questionnaire, the components kan? When you hear the component, kata you want to study on the satisfaction. So satisfaction, there are few components. Satisfaction on the management, satisfaction on. So there are few management. So how they get this component is from the qualitative lah. This is what we call focus group. Okay, focus group. Okay, this one is not yet pilot test. Belum lagi. This is only the preliminary research. Okay, you get the qualitative. Okay, to get the insight, to get the idea. Okay, what you want to ask. Okay, once you come up with the instrument, this is where the pilot test come in. The pilot test is for you to see. Okay, the expert already pass. Okay, the expert, you already have the insight, you know already what to ask. Okay, then from that you get the idea, what are the question that you want to throw to them, and what are the components that you have to put in your question. So when you already have the instrument, you want to make sure that your instrument is valid and reliable, kan? So you must make sure that your instrument can measure what it's supposed to measure, and it can measure accurately. So that is where the validity and reliability comes in. So when it comes for validity, you need to have a small study lah. That is called pilot study. So pilot study will tell you whether your measurement, the instrument that you have, is reliable and valid or not. So when do you do the pilot study? Before you conduct the real study. Okay. Okay. And then people ask, those who are in the pilot study, can you take that information become your the real study? Cannot. What do you think? let's say you already pass with the qualitative, so you already get the insight. Okay, you come up with the instrument, so you want to test whether your instrument is good or not, reliable or not, valid or not. Okay,
Mm.
so you take a pilot study. So
Meaning that you have your sample for your pilot study, and then for
katalah
the actual one, you want to include the pilot study in
so
your actual
can we
actual
include or
one.
not? Can we include or not? What do you
Hmm.
think?
Mm. What if because for me we can include it, but there's a question of, because the purpose of the pilot study is to test whether the question are okay or not, based on the results, the validity or the significance of the results of the factors, right?
Mm,
So from that, from the pilot study, then we would adjust our final survey.
mm,
uh, I think we can include some part of it, some part of the, I mean, the samples. But then, how do we discard about the matters that because we are drafting the question inside the pilot, right? So
mm.
how do we discard all those things to make it okay to be included, to take into account, to be add the samples with the actual one.
Mm. So in the
Mm,
end, depends on after the pilot study, you get
mm,
the information kan whether your
mm.
instrument is okay or not.
Or not?
If yeah, let's say your instrument is not, kan, so definitely you have to change, right? So when you have to change, all the information in your pilot study is not valid anymore. So you cannot include them. Okay, but in your pilot study, there is no like you just like maybe there are some grammar mistake, but the question, the construct is still there. All the questions are valid. It's just that you need to change it a bit lah, probably, but the meaning is the same. Then you can include. So if there is a changes, okay, if there is a changes in your instrument, it's a major changes, then you cannot include. But if you can just include them back, it's no problem.
So that means in order to be able to ask whether we want to add the pilot study responses together with the final study, depends on the severity of the adjustment we made into the
Yes.
pilot study.
Mm.
All right.
You just
Okay.
make sure that when you conduct the pilot study, the respondent that doing the pilot study is part of your population lah. And
Mm,
if it's outside of your population, let's say there are two type of pilot study. Okay, one pilot study is you test whether the survey is reliable or not. There are also another part of you want to check the validity. So validity ni is a very broad area. Validity is very
mm,
simple.
mm, mm,
Validity, you can go for content validity, you can go for construct validity. So when you come for validity, okay, so sometimes you pass the question not to the population that, not to
mm,
your target population. Sometimes you
mm,
go back to the expert, kan?
mm,
So you
mm,
go back to the
mm,
experts because they know whether your question is okay or not.
mm,
So if this is the case, then you cannot lah put them in your actual
mm,
study because they are totally different from your population.
mm. But I think the most important thing is that we must I think they know already, but maybe because of restriction of time and whatsoever, some students, they tend to skip the pilot study stage and they just proceed to the quanti. But
Mm,
bear in mind that the pilot study is a must process that we
mm,
can't skip, because
yes.
if during the viva, if the panel asks you, how are you sure that these are the correct or the best question to be put in your final survey, then how are you going to answer it? So if you
Mm,
conducted your pilot study, then you can say, I've conducted my pilot study, so I found this major thing is valid to be put in, so that's why I put in. So we must stress that it is important to conduct the pilot study. It's a
mm.
process that we can't skip. uh,
Yes, yes.
all right.
Especially when you are using instrument lah. Kan?
Mm-mm,
Using
mm-mm,
instrument, you definitely need a pilot study. Okay, pilot
mm-mm,
study depends on if you are doing just let's say instrument. There are two lah. Either you make a new one, okay,
mm-mm,
or you adapt, or
mm-mm,
you adopt. Kan?
mm-mm,
If
mm-mm,
you adopt, mean you just take whatever people have already
mm-mm,
validated, already know that the question is the instrument is valid. So that
mm-mm,
one is adopt lah. You just take and use. no
Mm-mm.
change.
Mm-mm.
Adapt means you just take and then you just edit a bit, okay, then you do adaptation. So
Excuse
adaptation, you need a bigger sample size lah for pilot study,
me. Alright,
and
okay.
also develop lagi lah. If
Mm-mm.
you are doing a your own questionnaire, definitely you need a pilot study.
Mm-mm. Okay, okay.
Uh,
Aida boleh proceed dekat
uh,
next slide.
Alright. Okay,
Alright.
next. Okay, next one is the other way around lah. If you conduct quantitative data collection first, then you conduct the qualitative data. So here you take you want to find the pattern only, okay, and then you find the result for the quantitative data, and then let's say you have find the pattern, and then you go for the in-depth research, you go for qualitative, and you get the discussion implication of the practice future research ni based on both lah. So the last one will be the qualitative. So in the end, it will become your final result will become your it's like something like qualitative study juga lah. Okay. So these are the two parts lah. So the most common one is qualitative to quantitative lah. Okay. Next slide. Okay, this one I explain to you. Okay, it's the other way around. Okay, next. Okay, so just click and enter. Okay, so from this. So this is the statistic, right? So next. Okay, okay. So this is like qualitative. Okay, and then next. Okay, then from the qualitative, you can also do descriptive, you can also visualize, and you can get a numbers. So from qualitative, also you can quantify. This is what we say is you are quantifying your qualitative research. Okay, actually it's not like on time. It's not the data itself is apa is qualitative, but the research become a quantitative because you can make it into a quantitative report. Okay,
But
next.
okay, Aida.
Hmm.
But the first table here, okay, blank the table. Okay. So the first table here,
Mm.
on time, early, late. This is an example of how you analyze your quali
Yeah.
based on you said that thematic. We
Mm.
find a pattern.
Mm.
For here, like maybe this one is the first respondent. So we find the pattern of on time, early, and so
Mm.
on.
Yeah.
Okay, so because I just later I maybe they need to see the one that you say how do we analyze the qualitative in terms of showing the pattern and all that, but you show me
Yeah,
anything.
this one is okay because but this one before you get the on time, so have you to come out like you have to analyze first lah all the answers kan. You have to analyze the answer, then you come out into the theme or the coding. Let's say the coding lah, on time is a code, early is a code, kan. So then only you can
Transcribe lah, you
yeah,
kena
transcribe.
transcribe
Yes.
dulu.
Okay, next slide. Okay. So next again. Just next. Okay, this is an example lah. Okay, I just want to show you how people write in their if you're doing a qualitative study, how they write in the report. So this one is the you can look at this paper conducting in-depth interview with and without voice recorder. So they want to just they in this paper they just want to study. This is only comparison. Whether if you go for interview, you should record the session or should you just let the interview write all the answer on the paper. Okay, so don't worry about the research. Okay, next. Okay, so this is the abstract. So you can see from the abstract that from the keyword, okay, you have interview, group discussion, and you know already this one is a qualitative research. Okay, so you can see that there is nothing about quantitative or statistical analysis in the abstract. So you know that this is purely a qualitative research. Okay, next. Okay, so you can see that this is usually in the introduction part, you can see what is the purpose of the study. So if you look at this, okay, the purpose you can look at down there, the last paragraph. Our purpose is not to discount the value of recording, but to represent. So this one is nothing to do with quantitative. So depends on the purpose, okay, of your research. Okay, then only you decide what's the plan lah. So the way you write is also you can see already whether it's a qualitative or quantitative research. Okay, next one. This one is very important. Next slide. Okay, so in this slide, so in the methods, so in the methods, you can see that data were collected by 2 trained and experienced interviews. So I highlight here because when you talk about qualitative, I explained to you, okay, the interviewer must be expert. You cannot just hire anybody to do the interview. Okay, there must be somebody who is well versed in your area, then can conduct the interview. And the next I highlight here is the interviewer who will also train and experience in data capture. So they know already how to. They have the skill in the knowledge, and they also have the skill in the interview. Because in qualitative, the interviewer play very important role. Okay, if you choose the wrong interviewer, okay, then you will not be able to capture all the information that you need. Okay, so they had conducted without listening to the voice recording. Preparation of these scripts was done immediately after each interview. So you see now, after the interview, they just scribble, and then right after that they quickly have to categorize all the information, because everything in words, so they have to so they have to base on their judgment, so they have to do the coding, explore. Okay, this is where we coding and we do the category lah. Okay, recording will transcribe verbatim and translate it into English, so it become the language back. So if sometimes when you interview, you probably not use you use the language that is comfortable with the respondent. So in your report, let's say you need to do the report in English, so you have to transcribe. So whatever you translate must also be validated by expert. Okay, let's say you interview in Malay. Okay, in your report you put everything is in English, so you must make sure that whatever you report in your paper, okay, is actually the same meaning from the interview of the respondents. Okay, the respondent talk in Malay, so you have to translate. So when you translate, you must make sure that you have the ability to translate. So that's why qualitative is very important. Okay, and then here the initial comparison was conducted by EK and GT, and subsequent RRJM and ML. Okay, I want to highlight here because when you are doing qualitative research, okay, because you want to interpret what people answer, okay, from the words, okay, and I told you that people have different perspective, people have different opinion, okay, so that's why here you cannot do it alone. Okay, you cannot do it alone. Okay, so you have to have agreement with all your researchers. Okay, so first here they two people look at it, and then it will confirm by the other four. So this is the process of quality. So quality, I think when you want to put it into the paper, you want to put it into the report, it become very tedious work lah. So sebenarnya when you do ke quantitative, analysis part is only 20%. Very easy. Okay,
Mm-mm.
you spend more time on the research problem,
Mm-mm.
okay, conducting the research. But when it come to once you get the data, everything is going very very fast already.
Mm-mm.
But if you're conducting a qualitative, okay, from start to finish is very tedious work. Okay,
Mm-mm.
and this one is I want to show you how you write in the report.
But
Okay.
but then Aida, this is, I mean, for research, right? I mean,
Mm,
like for example, as we are team, my expert here for the train interviews, maybe you as a interviewer.
mm.
But then, as for the students, they are new in this research. So, who are the trained and experienced interviewers? Can they just conduct the interview by themselves, or they must hire some kind of specific person for this task?
Okay. Uh, if they are using mixed method, okay, because they just want to confirm kan, they just want to get the insight, then it's okay because they have to tell lah, they have to train, okay, the student have to tell the interviewer, let's say they are doing the interview, they must know first lah, maksudnya meaning that before they conduct the interview, they at least must have the knowledge. Okay, they have to have the knowledge, and because they just want to the insight, this one, the paper that I show you is purely qualitative.
knowledge
Is
knowledge meaning that why they wanted to conduct the
yes.
quali, what kind do I mean, they have to read first lah,
Yeah, you have to read first.
what kind of what sort of question can be asked,
It's it's like when you go see your
mm,
lecturer lah kan. If you go
mm,
see your
mm,
lecturer, you want to ask
mm,
question to your lecturer. The lecturer usually won't give you the answer straight away kan.
yeah, yeah,
Usually the
yeah,
lecturer will ask you, okay, I have teach you this, okay. So what do you
mm,
understand first, and then only we give the answer, correct? Not? So
yeah,
it's the
yeah.
same thing. So they must prepare themselves first lah. Because
So
they cannot.
that's why it's really important to show your draft of qualitative interview
Yes.
survey to your supervisor
Yeah, and then
before you
what are the
proceed.
question? What are the question that they want to ask the expert? Kan?
So
That's why they have supervisor. Researcher don't have supervisor kan? But so
but
student,
they have partners expert in that area.
they have partners and they have supervisor. So supervisors is there to guide you. So if you are doing something like this, everything you have to refer back to your supervisor because supervisor supposed to be the expert lah. Kan?
Yeah,
The one the
so
expert.
we can state later the student can state
Yeah.
in their methodology that the expert here validating their
No, cannot.
cannot. I mean,
Cannot. If you want,
how
if you want to put in the report, so let's say you want to
mm,
put, of course supervisor we have to look at, we have to okay ni
mm,
question ni
mm,
okay,
mm,
okay or not, this one okay or not. But if
mm.
they cannot put that in the report lah,
So
kan?
how do
If
you
if they
write it
if you write
in
in
your
the
report?
report, you have to go for second opinion lah, not your supervisor lah. You go for other lecturer, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Then you can put in your report.
Other
Because
lecturer means
supervisor,
that the expert of the lecturer expert in that area, in that study, field of
yeah,
study.
if let's say the area is like it's very general area, and if
Housing.
any lecturer can become let's say like questionnaire, okay, he can go for second,
Um,
then you can put that in the report. But if
oh,
you ask your
supervisor tak
supervisor to
boleh, cannot.
cannot
Supervisor
lah, then
cannot, it bias.
bias lah.
Bias. Alright. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
okay.
Okay,
So
next.
so in the report, okay, if you are putting the exact word, you can put exact word. So actually, when you go for writing up the qualitative part, okay, you have two choice. One, you can put the exact word. So when you put the exact word, you have to italic lah everything. So you can see that this one is this is the apa, the interviewer respondent kan. That all italic is exactly the same what the respondent said. That's why if you're conducting interview, it's better for you to record lah. If you record, then you can write uh, apa everything. Okay, including the you have to put in. Okay, so you don't have to correct the grammar if
You have
they are not
do you have
grammatically correct.
Aida, do you have like examples of the how you record it, the thematic, the I mean we type back the conversation of the person we interviewed, right? And then we
Mm-hmm.
highlight for the thematic and all that. Do you have examples of that in
Uh,
for today?
okay. Later on when you do the conclusion lah, that one is for the conclusion. This one is for the
Okay.
result part. So the result part you don't
Oh,
have to conclude yet. Kan? You don't have to
okay.
conclude. So when you want to highlight, okay, what the respondent answer, so you can put exact word, but you have to put in italic. Okay,
Oh,
next
all
slide.
right. Okay.
So sorry.
Tak apa. Aida
Bukan,
boleh.
bukan, bukan. I already in the next slide. No wonder you don't know.
Oh,
Okay, next.
all right.
Okay, next slide, please.
Next slide. Saiful. Saiful? Alright.
This
Oh,
one.
so this is the one that you mentioned, how to
Yes.
analyze it, how to record. You
How to
interview
record.
and then you type back, but not all lah.
So
The
this one
most
is important
important
lah,
thing.
important thing. So this is
So
what
you do
you
it
put
in
in the report. So
Italy.
this is actually in the report lah. So this is how you put in the report. I think we have one kan, Dr. Hafiza, we our paper last
Uh,
time.
yeah.
We have one on qualitative that what we put in exactly what the respondent said
State.
lah.
Uh,
Okay, so you can see that the triple dot. So when they
uh,
have like
the
that
answer lah. You don't need
no need.
to everything. How are you? Nice to see you, sir. No need lah.
No need lah.
The important one lah.
The important lah,
Alright.
the one that you want to highlight kan. So let's say this one,
Mm-mm.
okay, so from a transcript interview. So if I just want to show you that if you want to put in the exact word, so you have to put in italic lah like this one.
But this
Uh,
one is for one respondent, right? Like if you have like 5 or 6, so you
so
do like the same
usually
answers?
what we do is we don't do like interview respondent lah. We just highlight okay. When they talk about facility, for example, when they talk about facility, so these are the respondents answer. So you have just highlight lah, just like take 5 for respondent. You just write lah all 4 like that. This I will try to look for the our paper tu when we write. Okay. So this one is when you put the exact word or next slide, Saiful, you can paraphrasing. Okay, you can. This is if you write, but you want to write in your own sentence. This happen if you don't have the recording, but you have the point. Okay, you have the point. So you are not taking the exact word from the respondent. So you just want to conclude, okay? So you can put, but this one is you put you put indent. Okay, so when asked how he feels, he replied that he is okay because he does not suffer from malaria or headache. Okay, so actually this one is what the respondent answer, but not his exact word. So you have two choice lah. When you want to report the qualitative part, okay, either you put in the exact word, so you italic them, or you just write it back. Okay, you paraphrase back the sentence, and then you write it in your own words. So this one must be grammatically correct lah. Yang tadi tu because you only write whatever they answer, so it does not have to be grammatically correct or like. But if they mix up language, you have to put in bracket lah what is the meaning in the other in English kan. So this one is paraphrasing. So you put their sentence into your own words. So there are two types lah that you can. So this one probably if you look at here, okay, there are three issues, okay, self-perceived quality of life, mental health, and strategy of promote. The following is the corresponding excerpt from the script. So this one, they put one respondent based on the three criteria. Or if you can write, okay, let's say you want to look into self-perceived quality of life. So you can put a few respondents answer there. Okay, so it's either you go for thematic ataupun you go for respondent. It doesn't matter. It's okay. So if you go for thematic, then it's easy for you to write the conclusion. Kan? So if you go for respondent, you want to highlight what the respondent, the particular respondent answer. Okay. So qualitative research is very is like you when you're doing qualitative research or reporting, you must be very good lah. Your language must be very good. Your English kan. If you're doing English, you have to be English. You have to be creative lah. Okay. Next one. Next. Okay, this is one. No, not yet, not yet. Thank you. Okay, this one. Okay, this is where, remember or not when I told you when we are doing the research process, the normal one, we conduct the extensive literature review before we do the methodology. Okay, but for qualitative, we need the literature review after you get the finding. After data analysis, you get the finding. So when in your discussion, okay, you should put your literature review juga. Okay, for example, okay, just now they say that the interviewer is an experience, so they put here, okay, interviewer should be trained to read and respond. So they uh, cite somebody who said that this is important. So in qualitative research, okay, at the end, okay, after your result, you have the discussion and conclusion. So in your conclusion, you need to put back some literature review to uh, justify all your findings. Okay, I think that's all. I think the last one is a thank you thank you slide. Uh, so this is the highlight lah. So when you conducting a qualitative interview, okay, so this is how you're going to write. But this one, of course, the paper that I show you is actually a pure qualitative paper. Okay, so of course, the knowledge of the researcher must be superb lah. But if you're conducting both, because you just want to have the insight, so actually you can ask your supervisor to check whether your question for interview is correct or not. But you don't say that, okay, this one is validated by the interviewer, because the insight, because that one you still need to interview the expert kan, into the expert. So when you report your interview with the expert, this is how you write lah, qualitative part. And remember, if you are doing qualitative as a pilot before the pilot study, you should put this in your methodology, not in your result. Okay, not your result. If you are doing pure qualitative, of course, this will become your result. But if you are doing this as part of your research and it is required before you come up with the instrument, then everything should be in the methodology part, including the pilot study. So where you report the pilot study result, also in uh, methodology, not in the result. So the result, if you are doing qualitative first, and then you're doing quantitative, so the result for quantitative only in the result part. Pilot study, preliminary, expert with the interview, everything should be in your methodology. Or I think, Dr. Fiza, you have like 7 chapters kan? Kan, it's not like our normal lah, it's 5 chapters only. But if you have
faculty, our faculty, the lecturer like to do the thesis like Wow, so thick one.
Because I think you involve a lot of qualitative.
Yeah.
So that's why you have to write a lot, kan? So I think you
Mm.
have another chapter for the pilot study. I think another chapter
Mm.
for the, let's say you have the interview with the expert. You have
Mm.
one chapter for that. Then you have pilot
Mm.
study. Like for us, let's say we do the pilot study.
Mm.
We put it in the methodology.
Mm.
So everything is in the methodology. So the fourth chapter is the result part lah. But I think yours is seven. I saw I saw yours is seven chapter. Kan? So you can have one, but that one is before your result lah.
Mm.
All these are before result.
That one because I want to make it in line with my duration of study.
Okay.
Secret. Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Right.
Okay. Okay,
I
thank
think
you, Aida, for the very insightful and detailed discussion on this matter today. I am really thankful for your time with us today. It's like a lecture. It's like a seminar on this. Normally we have to pay for it, but ada kau team dengan Aida arrangement. All right. So I
CSR,
open
CSR.
next project. So I open the floor for any Q&A by the students. So participants or students, do you have any questions on the matter, especially whether on your qualitative, on the methodology, or in your proposal whatsoever? You can directly ask and on your microphone, state your name and ask the panel. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
My name is Siti Darda. I
Okay.
just want to ask about the qualitative. As far as I know, we have limit for 10 people for qualitative, right? So how do I relate with the ethnology, the one that Dr. Aida explained, that need to do only one or two experimental question for yourself.
Oh, okay. Depends on what you want to gain from the qualitative study. The one that I said at one or two, you become the participant. Macam
Do, do I still need 10 people
no,
for the
because you are the only one. You cannot be clone kan. you
uh,
you are the one who involved in that process of learning, or in the process of uh, become the participant. So of course you cannot have more participants lah. Usually
I
one or
see.
two, because you yourself experience it. It's a first hand experience. So the one is totally different. But if you are going to do a qualitative study based on the insight from the expert, that one is 5 to 10. You should have at least if your sometimes you supervise it 10 kan, so 10 is just nice lah for the expert.
I see.
One
So
or
my
two tu
restrict
don't be
still valid if I do the
how many if
uh,
you do one.
uh
What
it's still valid for ethnology, right?
ethnology, because you become you are the participant.
I see. Okay, I just need
uh,
to understand that part. Thank you.
okay, because let's say you want to go to assess the experience in the dining in a restaurant. So you go there lah, you go to learn, so then you have the experience, then you can report back what your experience. So that is the ethnology lah. So it's
Aida,
different.
I think the students are still having difficulty in confusion about the population and sampling, especially on the qualitative, because if for quantitative is straightforward, like right, based on population. For example, if we want to know about the preferences of the housing consumer. If you are doing the quanti, that means based on the total population, how many consumer in Shah Alam or whatsoever, based on certain percentage formula and so on and so forth. So we get the sampling. So maybe they are not sure if they are conducting quali, they choose lah, I mean they have to do qualitative. They're not sure how to determine the sample, how much is enough, 5, 4, 10, or 11. So I think maybe Darda, Siti Darda, if is it possible for you maybe to give an example of the title of the research study you're conducting, or maybe so that when Aida can give some view whether what kind of qualitative and samples, how many do you need? If
My research title is Architects for Project Management. The challenges for architects for into project manager in construction industry.
Okay.
Mm.
So
So
your study is your population is the contract manager lah. Yeah, is it?
yeah, and architects also.
Architects also.
mm, mm,
So you want to do the qualitative study. So when you study, what do you want to do? What is your objective of your study?
My objective, I want to um, um, still under progress on my objective because the important part is the quantitative and the qualitative. I want to search for my interviewers. So my objective will be how do architects uh, face when during the construction industry, and to be the good example for project managers also.
I think if I can simplify it, maybe Darda she wanted to conduct a study on what are the challenges faced by the architect when they involved in project management. I think it's like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Aida, do you get me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So the main, of course, the main respondents here are the expert, which
Architect.
is the architect. So
Yes.
maybe she having trouble. How many architects does she need
Mm.
to interview? How you
Okay.
determine the sample?
Okay.
Right.
So your
Okay.
population is the architect lah kan? Your
Yes.
population. So later you are doing for the real study. You are going to take the population should be your architect, and then now you
Yes.
want to study the challenges. So in terms of challenges here, I think you cannot interview somebody else to get the challenges.
I
Kan?
must interview the experts, the
Yeah,
architect's
yeah.
title.
The architect probably who has experience in the construction. Kan?
Yes.
So that will be so. If you are doing, then later on you are going to conduct the real study, right? For the
Yes.
so usually for the insight you can just take like 10 is enough for you to conduct the
Mm.
interview.
All right. Thank
Mm.
you.
Mm. Because when you talk about challenges, okay, this one is your population, so you can have more in your qualitative. Let's say you are doing like you need somebody expert here it's not like expert is in your population. If your expert is somebody else, like it's very difficult to get the expert. For example, you need to have the insight from the construction manager ke, it's not architect. So because probably they have a different view of what architect challenges kan, so that one
Mm.
is different. So that one is totally different. So that one you have to take you have to figure out lah how is it there are so many construction manager. Kalau if your architect, okay, is your population and you want to get the insight from your population juga, so that's mean you can just take 10 and then you just have to interview. The interview ni it shouldn't be the same question in your real one lah.
All right. Noted.
Okay.
Thank you, doctor.
But don't do 1 and 2 lah tak cukup. Not
Oh,
enough.
okay. just
Okay.
just curious about the ethnology method.
Oh, okay.
Uh, Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Or Prof Zaida have to leave, so thank you Prof Zaida and the students for joining in. So any other students want to ask? Because for master AP725 master in property investment part 3 students, part 4 they are in the they have to in their final part of the final draft of their thesis. So there's some case that before this they choose to conduct quali And I mean, you cannot simply because that's the easiest way or the fastest way, and then 3 is enough like that. For I think the explanation you give today is very very useful lah, because okay, they might be safe when they uh, pick that, but bear in mind that you have Viva, so panel will ask, oh, why quali and then why 3, so you have got to really know about why you choose that one and about the samples and all that. Okay, so any other questions from the students?
Just my advice lah. If
Mm-mm.
you're for your project, so
Mm-mm.
don't go for quali lah. Quali is very very difficult for you to interpret.
Mm.
So if you go for you can have both. So just quali is just to assist you in the real data, but don't go for purely qualitative.
Quali. Mm.
Because that is no empirical evidence. So if you go for quantitative, at least you have numbers to prove. Okay, and then you'll be safe.
Mm.
If you have your qualitative, then you know your panel is an expert, all the expert in your area, kan? You are kidding yourself lah,
Mm.
because they are the experts, and then you are putting your opinion on this. What if your opinion is not correct? Because you are
Mm.
you still in study, kan? So the panel
Mm.
usually are expert in your area. So if
Mm.
you put empirical evidence, meaning that if you put in, you add in quantitative, because of the number, so nobody can
Mm.
say anything because you have the number. So nobody can argue the number. But if you put your opinion, okay, then people can argue. So my advice is please at least put some quantitative evidence there. Yes.
Yeah, it's not that because you're a supporter of mixed method.
No, either you go.
Okay, that one
uh,
is me. That one is me because
uh,
I like to be safe.
so because you do quantitative method, you can choose quantitative method alone, kan? But depends on
Mm,
what kind of data that you have, kan? If
but at
let's
least
say,
if you
uh,
choose to do
mm,
mixed method, at least there's
uh,
not to be perfect in solely one method. So
but
there's a purpose why you use this one for this, use
unless
this
Dr.
one for
Fiza,
this.
if you
Mm.
get the data secondary,
Mm.
secondary data, maksudnya let's say you are doing on construction,
Mm.
okay, you are not doing primary data, you are get the data from somewhere, so then
Mm.
there's no qualitative only to assist or to justify your
Mm.
your
Mm.
finding.
But then like you Darda example just now, she was, of course
Definitely that
lah,
one is questionnaire.
questionnaire, I
Mm,
mean qualitative lah, but
mm,
then you need to be very careful because there's how many architects in Malaysia, right? So your case
mm,
study is where, so maybe the samples is maybe out of how many, you have to class it. Okay,
mm,
your area is which class of architect. Is it based on experience? Is it
mm,
based on the scope of work? Okay, you cannot just get interview mix. As long as it is architect, there are architects. You just interview. You must, to be fair, you have to classify them. And then this if you need this kind of expertise because of their expert in this, so you have to group them, not to jumble up. As long as they're architect, you interview
mm.
bulldoze semua kan, macam tu
Yep,
kan.
yep, yep.
Okay, not bad.
Alright.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Alright, so any other question? Fang Yuan, are you still here? Fang Yuan? Okay, Feng Yuan. So Feng Yuan here is a PhD student. He's also a
Okay.
lecturer in one of the university in China. Alright, so any other student? Adiba, Zahrul. Ni kena sebut semua lah my student ni. Akrisha, do you have any other student questions? Arisha? No. Dah jelas tu. Sangat jelas Aida. Alright, okay. So
Alhamdulillah.
thank you very much, Aida, for today's presentation. Oh, there's some question. The participants, they would like to know if they have, if they can have your contact number, maybe if not your handphone number, your email, so that because you're the guru, right? the guru that they know. So maybe if they have, maybe they are shy to ask today. So if they can have your email contact or whatsoever, so that they
Okay,
can ask
I will
later.
put in the chat lah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Assalamualaikum.
Oh,
Salam.
ada lagi satu, Kristina.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Can I ask a question? But I think it may be not so important, but I want to ask it anyway. I want to ask because I'm a newbie, so I want to know, is it impossible to get a population of some area if there are any case? Because in my case, I want to get a sampling size for my study, but I couldn't find the sources to get the population. It may be because of my lack of experience or because I'm a newbie, so I do not explore any further yet.
What is your population?
The population of Timor Laut, Penang.
No, population.
Before this, Christina, can I know whether you're a degree student, a master student, or PhD student?
A degree student.
Degree student. Which area? QS or
Property management.
Oh, alright. So
Property management.
estate management.
Estate management.
Oh, okay. So do you have in specific what type of study you wanted to do? Aida, saya pula jawab Aida.
I want to do the study about what? Sekejap.
Tak apa, kalau you nak cakap in DM pun tak apa kalau you tu.
Saya nak tahu apa ni? Kejap minta maaf sangat.
Maybe because Aida there's some part 4 student, part 5 students. Part 4 student they are the new students in degree who just got their supervisors. So they are
can start already lah.
baru nak start lah, nak find tajuk and so on and so forth. But they baguslah they join kan, because they wanted to know, okay, if this kind of tajuk, what methodology should I use? Should I use quanti and that one? Okay, Damia,
Yes.
which area are you intend to do, or is there any, you can explain briefly the title maybe of your study you intend to do?
Okay, the title is Factors Influencing Buying Decision of Apartment in Timor Laut, Penang.
Oh, so this one is like you can never get the population. And definitely you cannot get population. But what I suggest, you need to calculate the sample size, right?
Yes.
So if you need to sample size, what you can do is you just estimate. Okay, I think Timor Laut in Penang
Yes.
Timor Laut in Penang. So can you just get roughly what is the proportion of the apartment available in Penang?
Oh, the whole Penang.
The whole Penang lah. Kan, if you can get ataupun Timor Laut lah, your population is all based on Timor Laut kan.
Okay.
So what you can get is you can get the number of the proportion of apartments in Penang kan, in Timor Laut. So you can use that proportion in your sample size calculation.
Oh, thank you. This
Because
helps so
usually
much.
one apartment, even though there's a family, one buyer kan. So because you
Yes.
want to know the buyer punya preference, right? So basically,
It's roughly calculation lah, how you calculate
roughly
the population.
calculation, because one apartment is one buyer kan. So if you know what is the proportion of the apartment, at least roughly you get the proportion of apartment in Penang, then you can calculate the sample already.
Thank you so much because saya memang tak clear sangat part ni.
So you are part 4 or part 5 student?
Now part 4.
Oh, part 4. Okay, tak apa.
So now
Nanti ada
now
supervisor.
clear or not, Damia?
So I should estimate the proportion of apartment population in Timor Laut.
Not
or
population, apartment je. Proportion of apartment je in Penang.
Apartment in Penang or Timor Laut to be exact.
Yes.
To calculate to
So that's
calculate
mean
the sampling size.
That's mean the proportion is actually the owner of the apartment. You get the proportion of the apartment, but you know that each apartment has owner. Kan? So you just
mm,
assume that one apartment belongs to one owner lah. Kan? So you get the proportion. So you get lah the number of apartment owner in Penang. Kan? Secara
sebab
logik lah, the logic behind it lah kan.
sebab kalau nak kira, if you want to choose the sampling, how much it must be on population. So how do you know how many buyers or whatsoever?
Apartment buyer kan.
How do you know? How do you determine how many housing consumers in Penang? So apa lagi yang boleh roughly yang similar to that?
The number of apartment lah.
Apartment lah. Sebab tahulah number of apartment
You can get
satu
kan, boleh
buyer.
dapat kan,
Kan. JPPH punya data.
at least the
and so on,
proportion
kan?
lah. If you cannot get the exact number, you can get the proportion lah.
Similar
Katalah
lah.
Timur Laut is 40% is apartment kan. So you know
Atau
already lah.
it's like how do you know berapa orang owner kereta kan, macam nak tahu bilangan dia adalah tengok yang berdaftar dengan JPJ ada berapa, itulah owner-owner dia.
Tapi kita ada assumption lah. Assumption dia maksudnya
Assumption
one
lah.
car one owner. Kita tahu ada satu orang boleh ada
assumption.
banyak kereta kan. But we assume that one car one owner. So you have to highlight that lah. Assuming
kena.
that one apartment belongs to one owner.
One owner. Sebab sometimes ada dua tapi sekarang you
tapi
assume
kita
satu
tak assume
lah.
lah.
So you kena state benda tu lah nanti dalam tu.
Okay.
Tapi nanti boleh discuss further dengan you punya supervisor.
Alright,
Jangan
thank you so
cakap nanti later.
Betul,
Don't
sagi
say
dia. Sometimes your supervisor have different opinion. Dia kata apa ni,
so
nak tanya nama orang kan.
So that's why before you do it, find books on research methodology, use the opinion by Puan Aida and all that, and then discuss with your supervisor. You cannot just say, well, Puan Aida said like that. Puan Hafiza said like that. Cannot.
Because your marks is graded by your supervisor.
But the thing that Aida said and me said is in the research methodology book lah. That's why you have got to find the book to confirm it. Okay, Damia?
Okay, alright. Thank you so much.
Alright, all the best. Okay, so
Thank
yang
you.
lain, the others, Adiba, Zarul, ada tanya anything? Tak ada, faham lah tu.
Tak ada doktor, tak ada.
Okay, Fan Yuan, do you want to ask anything, Fan Yuan? Fan Yuan dia kena attack Okay, tak ada. Alright, so I think for the last one, nak minta ambil gambar lah. So before that, there's another series. This one is, the first series is on qualitative. So the next series of the webinar, continuation of this, will be on quantitative. So around next week,
I think I'll focus on the pilot study lah, on the
pilot
validity
study,
kan, and then a little bit of when you do the year survey, so what ini expected lah.
The results in the pilot study, what do you know? I mean, what you need to know to emphasize and all that. Alright, so thank you very much, Aida. This is the second time for the second semester you assist us. Okay, and then we'll be having another second version of it around next week. I'll inform you later. The second series is on quantitative data analysis or on methods lah. Alright, so before we adjourn, can we on the camera and take pictures for you, some of you who willing to ambil gambar just for the record lah. Okay, siapa ambil kan nanti siapa ni Saiful or Akrisha ambil kan Saiful Saiful ke Akrisha? Boleh ambil kan? Okay. So Aida email address is in the chat box, so you can contact her. Alright. Okay. I pun still learning, so I know Aida like how many years Aida? 4 or 5. I attend her class and then tanpa malu, without shy, I just ask her, Aida, can I? And then at the end we're connected related. Alright, okay. Saiful, okay. Akisha. So kita je, yang lain semua pakai simbol Okay lah. Alright, Arisha ni saya punya UTA ni. Dia master student part 3. Akrisha ni kita punya part timer, Saiful kita punya
Lecturer.
lecturer yang tengah dipolish untuk research. Okey, ambil gambar Okey, untuk AP725, 755 Saiful ni, Encik Saiful ni kita punya coordinator thesis juga So dia bantu saya sama-sama untuk thesis dissertation you all. Alright, okey, jom ambil gambar jom. Boleh lah, bedal lah. Senyum. Alright, dah.
Okay.
Alright, thank you
thank you.
semua.
Thank you very
Aida.
much.
Thank you Saiful. Thank you semua yang
Thank you.
hadir. Akrisha.
Okay,
Thank you semua. All the best. Thank you Dina
Assalamualaikum.
semua. Salam. Kita jumpa next week. Alright, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Dah. Bye. Assalamualaikum. Salam.